This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Report, your exclusive Celtic SM Media podcast. I'm Scott McPike. It's always a pleasure to be your host. I'm delighted this week to be joined by a man who's kind of been on the podcast a few times in the SM Media. He always does well. He always is a pleasure to listen to. It's a pleasure to welcome Josh McCafferty.
Thank you very much, Scott, for having us on today. Great to talk about the team I adore, Celtic. So it should be a good podcast.
Yeah, it's not the best game to talk about, but obviously we'll get into it. But it's quite an interesting game, I would say, because there's a lot to kind of take away from it, but not a brilliant day at the office, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. I was actually at the game. I was lucky or unlucky enough to get a ticket, could you say? Made the trip through to Edinburgh, but it's disappointing to say the least. Hibs did sit in, but what did strike me was the way they looked to play it through the back a lot of the time, Hibs.
Okay.
And that caused Celtic to try and press up the park, and Hibs broke it a couple of times. He had a few opportunities. I think the Martin Boyle chance was one of the best chances of the game for me. Watching that for the Celtic end, heart was in my mouth. But overall, it's disappointing, obviously. But I've got no major concerns for the season going forward from that game. Brendan said it after the match. He was like, "Listen, we've had so many tough away games. We've been to Tony Macaroni, been to Tynecastle, been to Pittodrie, been to Ibrox, and now we're at Easter Road, and this is the first time we've dropped points out of all of those games."
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any major concerns, and no one can really complain. And I think the game on Wednesday night's had the best game you could have to probably bounce back. Maybe not St Mirren because the form they're on, but it's a good opportunity.
And I think that's a big thing as well. Like regarding the kind of team news and things like that, I don't think we were surprised to see it was pretty much a similar team, with the exception, obviously, Bernardo coming in for Hatate. Were you surprised at that? Because obviously Wednesday night, one thing we can say about Wednesday night was it was very intense. It was a high intensity game. Both sides were at it, kind of 100 mile an hour. I'll get into this later on because I want to kind of ask you and I kind of get my own opinion on it. But Bernardo coming in, were you surprised there wasn't any more changes, or did you think it would just kind of stay like that?
I think it would have been hard to make changes to certain parts of the team.
Yeah.
You look at probably the back four, it's hard to drop any of them. Bernabe's been completely exiled, so Taylor was going to start. AJ's got that jersey over Ralston at the minute, and Carter Vickers and Scales are irreplaceable because of the way they're playing. McGregor's irreplaceable. You can't drop O'Reilly. Palmer's in a upturn form. You can't drop him. Kyogo's amazing. I think the only player you could probably argue dropping was Dyson for maybe someone like Yang. But apart from that, I think, and then obviously Bernardo coming in for the injured Hatate. A couple of people were calling for Iwata to get the nod, but I feel after Bernardo came off the bench and he done all right midweek against Atletico, he was always going to get the start. So I don't think there's going to be many changes. I didn't anticipate many. I anticipated the exact same team that played the majority of the game against Atletico Madrid. But I did expect changes in the game, and that's what we've seen. And I think we're going to discuss that soon. But no surprises over the lineup for me. It was just disappointing of how those players played. But at the same time, you can understand, and I think it was evident there was a bit of a European hangover. The game against Atletico was played less than 72 hours before this one, and like you've just touched on there, the intensity of that game was so high. Both teams going completely at it from the off, and obviously the players. Before that, they played on the Sunday as well at Tynecastle.
Yeah.
So it is a busy part of the season, 7 games in 21 days for Celtic. But the players, I think they couldn't afford an off day, but you can forgive them for it, I think, at the weekend.
You can, and that's the thing. Like the kind of first kind of wee while, I thought Celtic were they obviously had a lot of the ball and things like that. Like there was a chance Bernardo was unlucky early on. Like there was a few kind of half chances. Celtic were. You could see early on that they were trying things, but it was just I thought a bit of fatigue, and as you say, to have that record of the away form so far this season, you can't excuse it. But I thought early on there was a lot of possession, but just nothing coming off. I thought probably Bernardo was the closest. There was nothing really early on that I would say was anything closer than that.
No, yeah, I would agree with you. It was just possession for me, and I think particularly the intensity of that possession and the quickness the ball that was being played wasn't enough, and what it was on Wednesday night. But like we said, the hangover from that was clear. Bernardo was the only notable chance, just flashing wide of the post. They were getting high up the pitch. They were threatening the goal, but couldn't create many concrete opportunities. And from that, obviously 0-0 at the break, Hibs were trying to get it in behind a lot of the time for Boyle, who was making his pacey runs as you would expect, and then as the second half went on, the game kind of opened up more as Celtic moved forward, and it was the exact same second half. Creating, they were dominating the ball and dominating possession, but couldn't create many concrete opportunities. I think the only one really that sticks out for me is the James Forrest one that hits the bar, and then the James Forrest one late on, and probably Mickey Johnson shot for the edge of the box. But apart from that, I can't recall many big opportunities. And then obviously Martin Boyles, I've just said earlier, who ball comes in for wide, he's free in the box, he should have scored.
Yeah, he should have, yeah. And I thought Hibs kind of first half as well, like Yuan, who's a player I quite like, we spoke about him before in a separate pod, like he's a player who can really catch the eye. He was even kind of quite erratic on Saturday as well, but the kind of main threat was getting the ball to him and Boyle. Johnson obviously goes off, taking that Bashiri clearance clean to his face. 100% the right decision for him to come off. We'll get into this later on because I think this is the kind of perfect summary of the game. Like with Johnson in particular, who's been so good since he's come in. You look at Ralston, who's dependable, but he's a drop in quality in terms of Johnson. He did fine. He did really well. I thought for what he did yesterday, I thought he was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Like you can depend on Anthony Ralston. That's the thing. He's a guy that's just always there as a backup, and you need players like that at the club. He's one of the ones that he knows the club inside out. He counts towards a homegrown quota for Europe. He's going to be at Celtic the rest of his career and be the backup right back the rest of his career probably. And he knows that, and he's happy with that because he loves Celtic. And having players like that around is absolutely crucial. And he came on Saturday. He got down the right hand side quite a lot, hung up a couple of crosses, didn't do too bad. So it's good to have him in there, but obviously Alistair Johnson, disappointed to see him come off, but Brendan said he'll be fine for Wednesday night, so I fully expect him to come back in, probably.
Were you surprised with how Hibs kind of set up in the first half? Because I thought, as we said, there was a few times where they were getting in behind. Like obviously, there was a really big chance. Remember Vente with the set piece? I thought he was unlucky. Yeah. Hart had a save to make for Yuan. Hibs, I obviously watched Hibs last week when they were at Ibrox, and they looked really good in terms of like, although they get beat 4-0, there's times where they can really play some good football, and I think that's something Montgomery's obviously brought into them. But they've got threats for attacking areas like Vente, Yuan, Boyle. They're solid at the back. They've got obviously like Hanlon, Fish. I think is quite good. I think Hibs, although their kind of league position doesn't tell it, I think they are probably out with Rangers and Celtic the best team in the league.
Yeah, I think they've got quality. Like in terms of quality of player, definitely the best. One of the best teams outside the two Glasgow sides. Like you've just spoke about the boys there, they've got, and they've Adam Lafondra like coming off the bench. He's a high quality player as well. The midfield, I really rate John Newell. I like him as a player. Their captain, he's handy for a set piece as well. So they've got quality all over the park, and I think it'll be interesting to see how their season progresses under Montgomery, because so far the signs, maybe not the results. Well, the result, he was unbeaten his first 4 or 5 games, but the recent results against the two Glasgow sides, particularly against Rangers, didn't show signs of improvement. But against Celtic, they did, and I rate them so far. And I'm interested to see how they do throughout the rest of the season, because, like you've said, that squad is chock full of quality, backed by some experienced players as well. You've got Davy Marshall in there, Hanlon, but you've got Boyle, but then you've also got some young boys coming through like Rocky Bashiri, other guys, Yuan out in the wing. I really rate John Obita as well.
Yeah.
The left back, he got up and down that left hand side a lot. And Will Fish on there, sending him back on loan for Man United. I quite like him as well, big tall centre back. So they're a good side, Hibs. I think maybe some people maybe underestimated them, thinking it was going to be a canter going through Easter Road. But listen, you can't complain at the result because Celtic didn't deserve it.
John Obita comes really close as well. A really good ball in for Martin Boyle, and Obita probably another day keeps it down and probably tests Hart a bit better. But they had threats. Hibs, Celtic, I just felt, and I think that's just something to raise up, and we'll touch on the squad depth later on because I think that's the big thing. But Kyogo, we know he's a class act when he's on it, and Maeda, obviously, despite at times being erratic as hell, Palma, I thought was quite poor yesterday. When the front three aren't clicking for Celtic, it's very rare that do you know what I mean? It's very one of them can have a bad day, but yesterday I thought 3 of them were kind of off it, and I don't think that's a surprise at the result when the 3 of them weren't clicking at all.
Definitely. The 3 of those players are all key to Celtic, the way they play. Louis Palma, Dyson, Maeda and Kyogo, and when all 3 of them are misfiring, it's very hard to, obviously you can't really rely too much on O'Reilly to do all the work when you've got 3 of them who are out of form. I thought O'Reilly was actually quite good, particularly in the second half. He was driving the attacks. So it is tough when those 3 are out of form, and like you said, the result probably shows that. the amount of goals Celtic have scored this season through Maeda, Palma and Kyogo. It was Kyogo and Palma on the score sheet midweek. Maeda getting an assist for one of the goals. And so that's like 4 goal contributors for Celtic the other night, and 3 of them were the front 3.
Yeah.
And they all misfiring at the weekend. It's tough to make up for that in other areas of the park. So they'll need to get back on form soon. That's the thing. But when you've got guys like Abada who's out injured, that is quite tough as well, because I think he could have been one that came and made a difference in that game as well, because I really rate Leo. So now he's back the better as well for the in terms of squad depth. Hopefully they can get back firing on Wednesday night, and as a home game is a good opportunity for them to do so.
You mentioned there, obviously, like, I don't think Kyogo was brilliant against Hearts. I don't think he was brilliant at Ibrox either, but it can come up with moments like where he's, do you know what I mean? All he needs is one chance, but there has been a wee bit, no a drop, because he still can produce, and I think he's still very much the favourite to be top goal scorer. But would you think it's been kind of happening? Do you think it's just a wee bit of kind of a struggle at the minute, or do you think he's...
Yeah, I think there definitely has been not a drop off in form, because his goal record, 5 or 6 goals in the league, but you can tell when he's kind of overall play. I think last season, so coming off the back of Ange's first season in charge, he was fit at the end of the season. Going into the second season under Ange, there was no sense of really transition at all. He knew what his role was in the team, and he knew what his role was going into the second season of Ange Ball. And he started that campaign on fire. He scored a hat-trick at Tannadice in the 9-0 win. It was absolutely immense. Finished the season really well throughout that campaign. He was fit for the majority. Whereas obviously had a bit of uncertainty this summer with Brendan coming in, never played under him.
Yeah.
Really know what was going to be happening. And I think the way Brendan has him playing, sometimes he'll like him to drop, and Matt O'Reilly will make the third man run into the box, where Kyogo drops, plays a wee pass over the top, and that is shown in a couple of goals Celtic have scored this season. So there is quite slight tactical tweaks to the way he's playing, and the way he's probably been managed as well, because he would have been used to, under Postecoglou, a very standoff managerial style, whereas Brendan will probably want to get to know him and have a personal relationship with him. So I don't know, he's not struggling with the new management, certainly not, but there has been a slight downturn, maybe not in terms of goal output, but in terms of overall.
He's always going to get you goals though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's such a talented footballer. Like, you can get a goal out of that, anything he can score, and that's the good thing about him. But like you say, maybe his overall play has taken maybe a slight dip, but I don't really have any concerns, because he's still scoring the goals. That's like I was saying a couple of weeks ago. I think he hadn't scored for 2 games in a row, 1 game in a row, and I was like, Kyogo's in a wee bit of poor form at the minute. Then he comes up and scores against Atletico Madrid. So, and I think that's been good for him as well in the Champions League, because it's a competition he hadn't scored in, and obviously he's got 2 goals in 3 games in that now. So it's great to see him prove his quality at the top level, and that can only bode well for him going forward. And he's obviously tied down to that new deal, which is only positive for Celtic.
100%, and I think that's interesting. We're talking about Kyogo. We mentioned Ibrox. He wasn't at his best, but there's only one player in the park that could have done that, scored that goal. Do you know what I mean? And that's Hearts always talk about Kyogo's movement, his intelligence. It peels away for the Heart. I think it was Rolls. He just peels away from him and just opens his body up, puts it away. Atletico, it's a brilliant basket. It's a brilliant 1-2, kind of him and O'Reilly, and just the connection they have. And O'Reilly was somebody I wanted to touch on, because there's no doubt he's been the star man so far this season. But yesterday, I just had the feeling, I don't know about yourself, but I just felt, because Bernardo and McGregor were sitting a bit deeper. Do you know what I mean? We're coming for the ball a bit. It was giving O'Reilly more space, but it was also like with Hatate, like we saw obviously last week at Tynecastle. Hatate was doing a lot, like he plays the touch, obviously, to put Palma in and things like that. But I just felt maybe O'Reilly at times was missing that yesterday, but he still obviously can bring some amazing kind of contributions. But just yesterday, I felt O'Reilly kind of, no, he didn't struggle, but I just, he took a bit of time to get used to, just with Bernardo sitting a bit deeper.
Yeah.
It was giving him more space, which was usually a good time, but I just felt at times he was maybe thinking he had to do more.
Yeah, I think naturally Bernardo's a bit more of a defensive-minded midfielder than Hatate is, and you could probably see that. I think against Atletico, he had the most pressures in the game, which is when you win the ball back for your side. So he's more of a defensive-minded guy than Hatate, and Hatate will look to complement O'Reilly a lot and combine with him and get attacking returns like we've seen. So O'Reilly, in the first half, I don't think he was too good. He ghosted a bit, and then I think the second half, as Celtic were pushing for the winner late on, he kind of came into the game more. But like you say, he's been absolutely a standout for Celtic this season. He's been unreal player of the month for September. I think he's top goal scorer in the league right now,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
he
So
is, yeah.
he's been so well. Like I said it at the start of the season, but just when Brendan was appointed, I was like, I think he can come into that Stuart Armstrong role that Brendan Rodgers had with him before. So, and he's certainly moulded into that player. He's done so well, and I think he'll be. I wouldn't be surprised if he left next summer. I wouldn't be surprised if he left next summer. Like if some big names came in for him, definitely. But I'd like to think he can stay longer with that. Also, contract extension like Kyogo.
And you saw against Atletico as well, and I keep coming back to it. The link up with Kyogo, there was a time I think he get quite a bad kind of not an injury, but he got a pretty bad kind of rock kind of at some point in the second half, but picks his cell up and I thought he was outstanding against Atletico. Like, I just thought he was him and Palma. I thought were the two standouts in that game, and it was I thought it was. I think it's difficult because I think when you're a player of that level, when you have been the star man, I think when the game's not going your way, I think it was a Kilmarnock as well. It was trying to be the kind of difference maker, and there's times you can do that, and it just means Mo's not coming off, and it just turns into a more frustrating day. And I think that was kind of what happened yesterday. But Maeda, he has a couple of chances. The subs. We'll start with the two that in the 57th minute. Maeda goes off for James Forrest. Bernardo comes off for Turnbull. I don't think there was anybody saying that they two changes were fair. But I think what I was saying about obviously Hatate being out, I think Turnbull coming in made a bit of sense. Do you know what I mean? When you're needing that goal.
Yeah.
The sub was one of the issue for me.
Yeah, I think it was the two latter that were definitely.
Especially the one for Palma. That made
definitely.
And it's that thing as well, and it kind of gives we'll kind of chat about recruitment as well. Like Mikey Johnson, I forgot he was still there. Like honestly, like
I know.
I think it was something like 18 months. I think since his last played.
18 months since his last appearance for Celtic. But just in the James Forrest one, Brendan, like I think he's put him on in so many games this season. He's given him a start away at Livingston. I think he has a lot of faith in James Forrest, and I don't know if that he's worthy of having that faith in him. If I'm honest, I don't entirely rate James Forrest now. Maybe the James Forrest of Brendan Rodgers' first spell in charge, certainly, but I don't think now he's a player that can come in and make a difference to a game, if I'm honest. But obviously then Turnbull, like you said, you can pretty understand about he's such a slow player. David Turnbull, I think him and Forrest, you're bringing off Daizen Maeda and Paulo Bernardo, particularly Daizen Maeda, one of the quickest players in the league. And in Europe, you're bringing on two of the slowest players at the club, which was a bit concerning. But then obviously the Mikey Johnston one. So I was at a press conference, I think it was before the Hearts game, and I asked Brendan about Mikey Johnston. And he was like, yeah, well,
putting Brendan
it could
back.
be. But I asked him about him, and he said he's such a talented player who's had a lot of injuries, and I want to give him the chance to get minutes.
Yeah.
So I was surprised when he brought him on. I seen him talking to him, I seen him bring him back for the warm up, and like, you're coming on, blah blah blah. So I wasn't surprised to see him come on, and when he did come on, it's sloppy. Sloppy is the key word I could use for some of his game, but at the same time, guys that come off Palma and Maeda, Johnston, unlike them, was actually looking to run at his man and beating his man, which was good to see. And obviously had the one where David Marshall saved it, which could have went in, but he had a couple of moments. I think it was a throw in on the far side where maybe Greg Taylor threw it to Johnson, and it's one of the ones you do in training every week, and he gets it wrong. So it was quite frustrating at times, but at the same time, he did show a lot of positivity in his game where he looked to get forward and run at his man. Brendan said after the game that as long as he continues to do well in training, he'll get the chances. And I've said it for weeks. I'd rather see Mikey Johnson off the bench for the last 20 minutes, who's got a point to prove, who's going to look to take on his man, rather than bringing on a 33-year-old James Forrest, 32-year-old James Forrest for the last 20 minutes of games. So there's that. And I think as time goes on, he'll get sharper in his game. I'm not saying he's going to make a comeback at Celtic, but you've seen what Scales has done. You've seen what Tony Ralston's done in the past. So he'll have his chance up until the January window to prove himself. But after that, maybe his future lies away from Celtic if he doesn't do too well.
Do you think that kind of speaks more about recruitment though? Because it's something that obviously we've touched on and things like that. Like there was obviously Brendan and his experience in the past in terms of not getting players to take them to the next level. And you look at the squad, like Mikey Johnson, all due respect to him, he shouldn't be getting minutes in 2023. Do you know what I mean? Like, does it speak to our recruitment thing as well? Like, is that Brendan Rodgers saying this is what I'm working with at the moment? Is that maybe cynical or?
I think the point about recruitment, so you look at the overall squad, you've got obviously Maeda and Palma, and then a lot of people are forgetting Leo Labada's out with a long-term injury. Marco Tilio is an Australian international, one of the best young players in Australia. He's came over, he's still yet to return from injuries, yet to make his debut for Celtic. So there's two quality players. Well, Abada's definitely quality. Tilio, I think, could turn good. So that's two. And you've already got Palma and Maeda, and then you've got Yang as well. I don't know. I think it speaks volumes as well about Yang, that Rodgers chose to play Johnston over him.
My first thought as well.
Probably what he thinks, but Yang has had his opportunities, so he can't complain. He played in that game, in the first Champions League game at home to Lazio. He's also had a couple more starts, but he's not done too much. He's a young player. He'll continue to. He'll just look to get minutes in the future. He's only 21, so can't expect much from him. But I think there's depth in the squad. I think, but there's just injuries that are hampering it. Abada would have come on at the weekend, and you'd have probably had Tilio instead of Johnston and Forrest, two international players, two young players who have high potentials. So there's that. But it does also say a bit about, I don't know what Brendan maybe thinks of Yang. I think they brought on Johnson.
What was the reaction when O come on for Kyogo?
I wasn't. I'd say I was a bit surprised, to be honest. And maybe we could have went to a front two because we were obviously pushing for a goal. And I think midweek against Atletico, it said a lot about what Brendan thought of O when he brought on James Forrest and played him in a front two with Maeda for the closing stages. I think it personally would have been better bringing on O because, especially when Atletico went down to 10 men, you're throwing balls into the box looking for a winner. But he obviously brought him on. He didn't. He's a presence in the box. When you're needing a goal, he can be clinical. He's got one of the best goals per minute ratio for Celtic. So he's certainly got potential. And he's a player who could do well.
You don't just get the feeling with O though that he's obviously not a level at Kyogo, Kyogo, but then again, who definitely is? But to be coming off the bench as much. Are you sat? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
not much faith in him when you come off the bench. Put it that way. There's not much. Oh, he's going to score. Like, see if you are bringing on. I hate to go back to the Giakoumakis theory because I think the way he left Celtic was absolutely fine. The board had to do it because he was a player who wanted out and wasn't satisfied with his minutes, etc. But if you had a player like him coming on, there would have been much more enthusiasm than if you've got a player like O coming on. And maybe that's an area the club have to look at in January. Striker, but obviously Maeda can play there, O can play there, Kyogo can play there, so maybe they're thinking that, but I think it should be a position they're not looking at in January because O is not a player that fills you with enthusiasm, but he's a player who has potential and could eventually do well.
But he did have a couple of chances, like is that header that Marshall makes a good save on, and then he does. I think he does really well for the chance that Forrest hits the bar. So I've just always had the feeling like, obviously with Giakoumakis, I said at the time when Giakoumakis left, I think that's a massive loss because he was, do you know what I mean? He was getting reliable. The minutes of a goal, but he was reliable. And he's doing well in the MLS. He's the sort of player who's, I mean, he was the top goal scorer in the Eredivisie playing for Venlo.
He's up for the best newcomer in the MLS alongside Lionel Messi.
Correct.
So that's a lot. So he's a big loss, like you said. I was quite disappointed when he left, and O is not the same as him in terms of what he's going to provide to the team. But at the same time, once O maybe potentially gets to the age of Giakoumakis, when he's got 5 years more development, he could be that player. But right now he's not, and that's the reality of it. But like you say, he does have that bit about him where he can do something for you. He could pull something out of the hat, but he's not reliable. He's not the player that Giakoumakis has, put it that way.
There's a couple of chances late on. I thought David Marshall, and I thought he'd probably one of the best games he's had in a long time.
Yeah.
Not that Celtic were overall kind of battering his net all game, but whatever they had in front of him, you know what I mean? I thought he was really solid yesterday.
Yeah. He made a couple of acrobatic saves, good saves too. And he's, even with the ball at his feet, he was good for the majority, apart from one in the first half. So he's done really well, obviously, against his old team. Yeah, I heard a couple of shouts from him, he just chuck it into his own net and help us out. But no, he done really well, did David. He was a player who was linked with a return to Celtic a couple of years ago when we were on the hunt for a goalkeeper, and he was doing well for Scotland. So you know what he's going to bring. He came through at the club, I think before even I was born, he was playing for Celtic. So he's been around for a while, but he's still got that in him that he can make saves like that.
Probably a chance of game. Forest obviously hits the bar for the corner. That's as close as it. But did that just
Yeah.
sum up the day, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, it's not fine margins per se, but it was just I was getting ready to jump up because I thought it was going in when it came in at the back post for Jamie Forrest, and it would have been a great story for him to get the goal because I think that would have been the 11th or 12th consecutive season that he scored for Celtic. So he'll want to get that goal throughout the season, and maybe if he doesn't get it towards the end, they'll give him a wee penalty here and there. But it was very disappointing when that one hit the bar. I feel like I think it was about the 82nd, 83rd minute when he had that chance. And when that hit the bar, you were just like, right, that's it. We're not getting in for this game. There was like even moans of that at half time. The way we were playing, we were just like, we were not good at all. But there's the chance to bounce back on Wednesday, which is good. And the points margin at this stage of the season, you're a quarter of the way through the season. It's going to go up and down. I don't think that means much at the minute. No one was saying the league's really over yet. Obviously, Clements come in, albeit Rangers were not lucky today, but they got their 2 last minute goals
they
today.
were lucky. They were lucky.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself. They were lucky.
which obviously I was in work and I seen that score and I was like, oh, that's unfortunate there. But I think it doesn't mean much at the minute. The points gap, as much as I think it would mean a lot if it was like say 12 or 13 points at this stage of the season. But see, when it's like 7, it can change like that, and it has been going up and down throughout the season. So that's not a major concern. It's just the performance was the main concern for me.
But as you say though, like going to Tynecastle, going to Ibrox,
Yeah.
Fir Park, obviously coming back late on, Livingston. They're hard places to go. Pittodrie at the start of the season. I think if you'd said to Brendan Rodgers he'll be 5 points clear after that run, he'd have put your hand up.
100%, 100%. And as well, 5 points clear with having drawn 0-0 twice to St Johnstone and Hibs is even better. And obviously winning at Ibrox. I think that's Celtic's toughest run of games we're probably going to get throughout the season. Obviously, we've got to go up to Dingwall next week, which is another tough one. But we've got a lot of the tough games out of the way now, which is good, especially when you're coming into this busy period of the season where it's going to be Rangers having to go to those places and having to get results because they're the ones that are chasing, which is only positive for Celtic, who just need to turn up at Celtic Park against these teams and do the business. So that's good. But yeah, like I said, there's no major worries, and it's good that Brendan's been to all those grounds now and he's came pretty unscathed, I would say. Obviously, despite the draw yesterday, but apart from that, we've been brilliant in those games, and I think the Motherwell one is the only one that's been close out of them all, if I'm honest. Tynecastle was 4-1, Pittodrie 3-1. Obviously, Ibrox was pretty close, but you've got to expect that. So that's been a positive. But there was shades in that Hibs game of the performances we've seen at Kilmarnock, at St Johnstone at home. But you're just hoping that doesn't creep back in, because I feel as though Celtic had turned a corner after the Atletico Madrid game and after Tynecastle. But then you come to Hibs and you're putting in a performance like that, it's like not 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's a bit of a concern.
I want to touch on, obviously, like we've obviously touched a lot on the attacking subs and things like that, but a player I want to touch on that we've kind of praised a lot recently has been Liam Scales. Another magnificent performance. I thought he's so solid, and I always say with Brendan Rodgers, it's not like at times you can question who he brings in and some of the signings he's made at all clubs, not just Celtic in the past, but it's what he does with the players that are there, particularly players out in the cold, like a Liam Scales, who comes in, and as you said at the start of the show, Carter, Vickers and Scales, they're irreplaceable at the moment. But Scales is just, he's taken such a step in terms of improvement that I think you've got to give Brendan massive credit for just how well he's improved them.
Definitely, I think that's the level of manager Brendan is, that he's improving a player like Liam Scales, who was at Aberdeen last season, who thought probably at the end of the January transfer window that he didn't have a future at Celtic and he was going back up to Pittodrie. But he's absolutely taken his chance in the team. You've got to credit him as well as a player, because he's come on leaps and bounds. He's done so well. He's went from not even playing for Ireland to being a full international player. He's playing in Champions League group stages. He started all of Celtic's Champions League games. He started at Ibrox. He absolutely excelled in that game alongside Lagerbielke. So he's done so well for me alongside O'Reilly. He's been a standout this season. He's been absolutely unreal in his performance levels. The only thing he's missing is a goal, and I can't wait to get that because he fully deserves it more than anyone in that Celtic team at the minute. Also, as well, the fact he's left-footed. He's the only
Yes.
left-footed Celtic centre back at the club. He's aids the boys so much when they're playing out for the back because it just opens up so many doors. And that left-hand side, we used to see, well, Greg Taylor was the only left-footed player in the back line. You'd be playing like Carl Starfelt, who, okay, he was all right with his left, but he's such a right-footed player. Carl, and then obviously you had Jens, who was pretty both-footed. So, no, him on his left foot as well is a big versatile player because he can play left back as well. Like, say Taylor gets an injury, Bernabe's been exiled, like I mentioned earlier. I don't even know what's happened with him. Skills can probably come in at left back, and he's keeping players like a Swedish international, Gustav Lagerbielke, wasn't even in the squad at the weekend. Mike Nawrocki, returning from injuries, fit and available now. He's not getting a look in. So Scales has hit new heights, and I'm so pleased for him as well because he's a Celtic fan through and through. And there's a picture that surfaced because on Twitter the other day, I think it was 5 years ago, he was playing in the third tier of Ireland. So and he's 25 years old, so he's 20 playing in the third tier of Ireland. It just shows you how things can change in football. It's such a rapid sport where players can come on, and he's certainly done that. He's taken his chance, and like you say, he's undroppable at the minute.
And that's it as well. Obviously, I really liked Nawrocki, the kind of few games he was there. I really liked him. I think he could be a standout when he comes back. And when you sign a player like that, and Lagerbielke as well, I think he's got a lot. He's obviously got a lot to learn. Bringing in Phillips as well, I remember the Rangers Celtic game. I remember saying Phillips will go straight in here because I don't think he'll trust Liam Scales. But it's when you get that chance. It's when a player like Scales, who probably never thought he would get another chance like that, you take it. That's how you do it. Do you know what I mean? You take it. Really, I thought he was excellent against Rangers. He's been excellent. I thought his best game for me was actually Wednesday night. I think Wednesday night.
He was unreal. He's every single game he just keeps getting better and better. You're like, when is he gonna, like, you're sort of thinking he's gonna have to take a drop off soon. Like, this guy who's spent last season at Aberdeen, no disrespect to Aberdeen, but you're thinking, when's he gonna make a mistake that's gonna cost us? But he's just not. He just keeps doing so well. And it's only positive because it's another option in the team, in the squad that you weren't expecting to have. And it's probably made sure that Nat Phillips is probably not going to have a future at Celtic beyond January, and he's going to head back down to Anfield. So he's kept him out of the team. He's keeping 3 players out of the team at the minute, and he's just doing so. I'm so pleased for him as well. It's great to see.
Looking overall at the result and the performance, do you think Wednesday night was a big part of that? I think it was just a drop in terms of fatigue, and
I would argue that. I would argue that as part of it, but there was a lack of kind of ideas as well, which was slightly concerning. But at the same time, you can't expect the players to play against one of the top European sides, put in an intense performance for 90 minutes, and at Celtic Park in the Champions League, it takes it out the players. And less than 72 hours later, go to Easter Road against a team chock full of quality who have not played for a week and who have been preparing this game as like a cup final for a good 5-6 days, with a new coach who are on a bit of form. They've done pretty well so far. So I think it wasn't expected, but at the same time you can understand why the result wasn't there. But the performance needs to be better on Wednesday. It needs to be much better. There needs to be dynamism. There needs to be chances created. There needs to be intensity of the pass, and the speed of the game needs to be played higher than what it was. So there needs to be improvements, but at the same time you can understand why the levels weren't as what they have been recently midweek.
probably the best thing for Celtic at the time's another game. It's going to be a big game Wednesday night. They host St Mirren, who are sitting third in the league, had a good result at the weekend as well. It's a good test because, as you say, it's a chance for these players to bounce back. Regarding the team, I don't think there'll be any changes at all, actually.
Yeah, I can't see many. Like we've said at the start of the show, like I mentioned, I went through the lineup for the weekend, and there's a few players in there you'd expect to be dropped. I think maybe one of the only changes you could see, maybe Bernardo for Iwata, something like that. Maybe one of the wingers dropping out, like Yang getting the nod, James Forrest getting the nod. Hopefully not. But no, I can't see many changes. I could maybe see players coming off the bench later on getting minutes, but it's a good test because St Mirren are they're flying at the minute. They've beat St Johnstone 4-0. Albeit St Johnstone just sacked the manager today, they're in an absolute state at the minute.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're high flying. They're doing really well. They're probably one of the best teams outside the two Glasgow sides this season. So it'll be an interesting one. But at the same time, it's a game you're expecting the Hoops to take all 3 points from, and it's a must to take all 3 points. So then they have to go up to Dingwall in the early kick-off on Saturday, and that's going to be another tough one. And after that, it's Madrid. That's going to be a hard. And then it's Aberdeen at Celtic Park. So
And the games
tough.
are coming.
And they're coming thick and fast, and that's what's positive. When you drop points, you've got the chance to make up for it in a couple of days, which means it doesn't linger, which is good. And that's what they'll look to do on Wednesday.
When you've got that kind of run of games, and we've kind of touched on, there is a drop in terms of the first 11 to the subs. There is. That's the reason.
Definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that worry you?
Not entirely, because obviously Hatate was missed at the weekend. Abada's out. Talio's still to come back, but there are certain areas of the pitch where you're probably looking for improvements. Left back's one of them. I think that's a standing out area where you're going to need to improve soon. Obviously, probably in January. Midfield doesn't worry me too much because I really rate Iwata. I like him. I like Paulo Bernardo. So we've got the option to buy him. Rio Hatate, Matty O'Reilly's done so well. And up front, I think the only probably you could maybe look at another striker because we've already touched on Owen, things like that. So maybe that's an area. In terms of overall quality, I just think it's injuries that are hampering the team at the minute. Obviously, two key players, Abad and Hatate, who are in the first choice starting 11 last season, out. And then you're probably looking at a backup left back. Because say you bring someone in, Greg Taylor doesn't start that game at the weekend. You bring someone in who looks to bomb forward, who looks to actually take on a man out on the left-hand side, because we know Greg Taylor doesn't like to do that. As much as he offers, he's not going to get to the byline and hang up across maybe someone who can do that. We all thought Bernabei was going to do that, but he just continues to be immature.
He's in Siberia, isn't he? I think
he's been totally locked out. So I don't think he has a future. You never know though. Left back's probably going to be.
I think his card was marked when he came on at Ibrox and just get booked immediately. I think his card was marked then. I think Rodgers looked at that and went, like in a game like that, I think Taylor was woeful that day, and he looked at that and thought, I can't rely on him. And that's the thing with Taylor. Like we know Taylor's not going to put down any barriers as the best. Like he's always going to get his critics, but for the job he does, he's relatively stable.
Yeah,
like
he does. You can trust him in the league in domestic games, but see when it comes to Europe, when it comes to the derbies, you're looking for a bit more quality. And he doesn't offer. He offers a lot in terms of his passing because he's a good footballer. He started out as a midfielder in his career, and then so he offers a lot on the ball, and that was evident under Ange last season when he looked to invert. But this season he's not probably hit the heights of last campaign. But at the same time, he's dependable. But at the same time, you're looking at bringing someone with more quality in because he's not gonna go and put in a performance away at Atletico Madrid and be a standout, unlike if you brought a top level guy in for that, a top level guy for Celtic. It could do that.
What do you think for Wednesday night? What's your prediction?
I think Celtic will win. Obviously, I'll go for a 3-1. I could see St Mirren scoring, but I think Celtic will get back in form and hopefully goals. Hopefully Kyogo gets another. O'Reilly continues his form and. Hopefully, I'd love to see Scale score, like I've said. So I'll go for 3-1.
We'll move into talking about a kind of wee project you've got going, the B and youth, the loan kind of situation. Talk to us a wee bit about that, because obviously kind of covering the Lowland League and things will probably interesting for the next 5 minutes. But I want to kind of hear what you're up to with that.
Yeah, so just a Twitter account I started. I've had the idea for it for a couple of weeks, a couple of months now since the start of the season. I only really got going with it recently because of like stuff I've been doing, work and starting uni and that. So it's just on Twitter. I've only got a Twitter account for it. If it keeps going well, maybe get it on Instagram or whatever. It's at Celtic YL updates, Celtic Youth and Loan updates. Just each week I look to put tweets about how the loan players do. You've got Yusuke Adeguchi, Matthew Anderson, Toby Oluwayemi, many other players who are out on loan and seem to be doing pretty well. Bosun Lawal's one of them. I've liked what I've been hearing from him in recent weeks. Then obviously talking about the B team as well, who are in the loan league. Like you've said, they've not done too well this season, but going by speaking to Darren Adee a couple of times, that the results aren't the ultimate goal for him. It's performing the players and improving the players and the performances that they're getting. And I think they've had great opportunities to do well in the UEFA Youth League. We've had games against Feyenoord, Atletico, and Lazio. Taking a point against Lazio at home was really good. The performance against Atletico was really good, albeit conceding 2 goals at the end of each half was disappointing. And Feyenoord have a really good academy, and they done so well in that game over in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
So the B team is covering that as well, and just players out on loan. So if you're interested in it, go to my Twitter, you'll find it through there. I'm the only person who's running it. It's all done by myself. So if you're interested in that and you're a Celtic fan, probably I would expect you to listen to the podcast. Just go and give us a wee follow there. But the B team, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good players at the minute. Yeah, I like particularly Mackenzie Carse. Rocco Vata's still in the B team.
I was going to ask you about Rocco
Yes.
Vata actually, because I think there was a piece on the channel the other day and we were talking about that. Like, I think with Rocco Vata, he's at a stage where he's too good for the B team, but is he going to get the chance for the first team? He's at that kind of age, isn't he?
Yeah, he's what we say he's at that kind of age. I would say it's more that kind of level, because he's younger than me. He's like 17, 18. He was born April 2005, so he is a young boy. In the last season, he was getting opportunities under Postecoglou, and he did impress. But there's a lot of interest in him in the summer, and he didn't sign a new contract.
Yeah.
And Celtic obviously didn't want to loan him out, because if he does well, the team's going to get him for free at the end of the window. So they've just kept him in the B team this season, and he's been doing pretty well. He just stands out for me in the youth league. He stands out, and he's a different type of winger to what the club have at the minute. He's tall, but he's got pace as well. He's unlike what Palmer's not much of a pacey winger who'll look to drop a shoulder and take on him, and he'll cut inside. We all know what Maeda offers. He's a absolute train down that right hand side. Whereas Vata, he's good on the ball. He's quite tall. He's quick. He's got a lot to learn though, but he's still a talented player. And I would love to see the club get him a new contract and start giving him more first team opportunities. But I don't think that's likely. I think he's probably going to leave on a free at the end of the season and go maybe somewhere down south. There's been interest in Germany and Italy.
Yeah.
And I think he'll have a big future somewhere else there. I really rate him. And his mum's always there at the B team games supporting him, which is good to see. He's got that good family around him. Obviously, Rudy's his dad, so Rocco's he's got a great attitude, and it's disappointing that he's in the B team and he's not getting first team opportunities. But listen, there's a lot of other talent in that team. Mackenzie Carse is one I really like, midfielder, captain of the B team this season, 19. He scored a penalty against Lazio at the last minute in the youth league to get the draw. I really rate him. His passing range is really good. He's not the tallest. He reminds me a bit like Cal McGregor in terms of he's an all-round midfielder, and obviously pitch side at the couple of the B team games, I've heard him just talking those players through the games. He's like coaching them almost, and he looks so much more experienced than he actually is. So I really rate him. And there's a couple more. Lenny Agbear at the back looks a talent.
I like him as well. Actually.
Yeah, Mitchell Frame, left back, signed a new deal. There's a lot of interest in him for down south. So there's a lot of talent in the team at the minute. And obviously boys out on loan. Matthew Anderson, left back. He's in Austria. I really, really rate him. 19 years old. He's played for the Scotland under-21s a couple of times. And he's impressed there. Obviously been promoted for the under-19s recently. So he's doing well, and he's not had many first team opportunities. I don't think he's played for the first team yet, but he looks a talented player. Ben Summers out on loan at Dunfermline. He's struggled with injury. He came back last weekend against Derry United, but this weekend he was injured again.
Yeah,
he made his first team debut last season along with Rocco Vata, so he's one to look out for. There's a lot of talent, and there's a lot of talent out on loan as well. So just to keep up to date with that stuff, you can give the page a wee follow.
I was going to ask you about one player, and he's a player last season. I was talking to a couple of guys we maybe both know, and they were saying like, who's the standout in the B team, and I said 100% Joey Dawson. I haven't seen much of I haven't seen much of him this year. He's not been in any squads, but I noticed a couple of weeks ago he was in the bench against Stirling, and I was thinking, because I thought there's something weird going on there. What do you kind of know about that? Because I've been asking about, and I've not heard anything.
Yeah, he's one he's kind of fell into exile a bit. He's not been seen in training photos, obviously in the squad against Stirling, like you said. But last season he did impress.
He was phenomenal last season.
Yeah,
he was the best player in the league last season, I thought.
He done so well, but he is at that age where he's like 20-21, so he's probably older than the majority of the squad. Hence, his performances are probably the level they are. I generally have I don't know anything that's happened there. It's a weird situation. It's definitely something to look into. But Joey, like you said, he's a talented player. He's a kind of different striker. Like, he's quite tall, physical, but he scores goals. Played for the first team away at St Johnstone in Boxing Day in Ange Postecoglou's first season in charge, and he almost scored in that game. So he's done pretty well. But he's a talent. He was brought in for Scunthorpe United. Same way Gary Hooper was brought in for Scunthorpe United, an English striker. So I don't know, if I'm honest, what's going on in that situation.
I've been asking about, and I've not heard a thing. But no, I thought last season I says if he doesn't go into the first team, then I don't know what's going on there. But no, I was just when I seen him in the squad against Stirling Uni, I thought it's weird how he's in the squad and he didn't go on, and then he wasn't in any of the last three. But I know, I mean, brilliant channel. Thoroughly recommend you check out Josh. Obviously, I highly recommend his writing as well. Very, very good. And it's been a pleasure to do this show. We will be back next week for another episode of the Celtic Report. And Josh, thank you very much as always for coming on, mate. Best of luck with the channel, and it's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the chance to chat and get a plug in for my channel. Hopefully on again soon. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much. We'll see you all soon. Cheers.